fire management of the Wet Tropics and Indigenous perspective. Let's kick it off now. I'd like to introduce Mr. Barry Hunter. Barry is a descendant of the Djabugay-speaking people, the hinterlands of Cairns. He has 30 years experience in Indigenous affairs, Bachelor of Science at Charles Sturt University, and a keen interest working with community rangers, where he protects, investigates and monitors natural and cultural values, including fire management. So Barry, thank you very much.
Thanks, Terry, for that warm welcome. And firstly, I just want to acknowledge and thank Wet Tropics, Leslie and Scott. So great to have you up here today, and board members as well, Annie. And I also want to thank Jeanette and Ashley as well for organising this incredible event and giving us the opportunity. Before I get into it, I just want to so we had the acknowledgement of country, but I want to do things a little bit different. And what I want you to do is just think for a moment, and I'll get you to stand up. I know you got your tea and your coffee, and I'll get you to stand up. So when I at various points in my life, I went away, travelled away, obviously for university and other points for work. And every time I went away, and at the time I met my then-to-be wife, and she saw how homesick I was. And hearing Terry and Leslie talk about the significance of this place, you can see how, one could get homesick for this country. But it was more than that. It was about country. It was about knowing and you can sit down, Janet, sorry. And knowing what that connection is to country. So I want you to close your eyes and just think for a moment about a particular piece of land that's really special to you. Just think about that part of country, and you're connected to there for some reason. It might be family, it might be that you visited there and it's just aesthetically amazing, and it might be that you grew up there, and it's more special to someone in your family, one of your loved ones. As you're thinking about that place, I want you to just think about what you'd say to that place. What would you say to it? Just imagine that for a moment. Just what would you say to country? Because you know it's special to you and you know what it means to you. So that's what calling out to country should be about. When we go into special places, it's about that. It's about acknowledging and that heartfelt sense that you got when you walk into a country. And it's about saying, to this country, you're beautiful, I'm here, I want to look after you. I want to care for you. I want to play my role in looking after this country. So when we talk about caring for country and acknowledging country and welcome to country, this is what we should really be talking about. We should be talking about calling out to country and talking to country. Because country listens and country talks back to us. And when we talk today, we'll show you how country talks. Country tells us the right time for fire. So just think about that today, and when you go back to that special place, just keep that in mind and say that to that place. Thank you. So, as I get into this talk, there's a couple of things that I want to cover in regards to the presentation, and namely that it's about that. It's about looking at country in a different way. How do we manage? How do we implement fire? And when does country tell us the right time to burn? The presentation that I'm going to, and the information that I'm going to run through today, I want to acknowledge up front where it come from. And it came from two old men up on Cape York, a little place called Laura. And from that experience, a young man at the time who I knew really well and grew up with, he worked with those two old people. And he captured their knowledge. He saw the importance of it. And putting that information and knowledge together, he saw the implication that it could have, not just for that country, but what we're seeing today and earlier this year in those catastrophic events down in southern Australia. And I just want to acknowledge that young man. He's sitting right in front of me here, Victor Stephenson, and I'm glad to have you today, brother. But this information and this knowledge came, and he saw it as his duty, and still his duty, to pass this on. But part of it is not just about that knowledge, it's about how we convey that knowledge. And I'm so glad we've got PD today to talk about how part of that conveying can occur. So Peter Stanley is working with Victor and those two old men. And a big component of that was to be able to turn that knowledge, and as Leslie mentioned about traditional ecological knowledge, turn that into something that scientists can understand, Western science. Because Western science is rigid and is constricted sometimes. And it's about breaking down those barriers and being able to show that within those knowledge systems, there's a way to expand that and grow that knowledge and grow that systems. So I'm so glad Pete's here today. Thanks, Pete. So my country, and those first couple of words there, Boomba Biri Badang, is about being on country. And some of the things that we found over the last couple of years, and this year has been incredible. We've never burned as much country as we have this year. And some of the aspects of getting out on country and being out there and revigorating this practice is exactly about that. It's not just about culture. It's not just about fire and environment. It's about culture as well, and reinvigorating culture. So just a bit about ourselves. So the Djabugay Rangers. So we're funded from the Department of Environment and Science, Indigenous Land and Sea Ranger Program. We've got 3 positions here in Cranda. And basically we just get out and do a whole range of things. So our aspirations has always been to look after country. I started the ranger activity here years ago when I was a young fella. Just wanted to be ranger and on country. And so we got this thing going and went through boom and bust period over the years when funding comes in and when it disappears. And this is just the latest incarnation of it. So being out on country, it's about learning and applying and understanding those range of skills. And like I said, applying 2 knowledge systems, our cultural knowledge systems and the way we work and relate and communicate between ourselves, but working within that broader system as well. Working, like with the likes of Robbie Miller from QPWS and Lyndon Henry, and really getting out there and playing our role within that. But the key important part of that is to show that we're capable and we're able to do this, not just within our knowledge, but within the work practices that we have as well, and get out on country and do it. So some of the country hadn't been burnt for a long time, and I spoke to Victor and got him back here a few years ago in 2016 and said we've got to start burning out of Mona again. The last fire that I participated in there was around 2008, and we had to get back out there and manage that country. And so we got Victor up and just started talking about, understanding what we have to do, and he made it clear that it's really about understanding country. If we're not doing that, then we're not doing it right. If we don't know that country, if we don't know the ecosystems, and there's ecosystems within ecosystems, and if we're not understanding and reading that, then we lost the game already. And another key point is that some of those areas, that it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time to get just to scratch, being able to manage and implement some sort of fire regime so that that country is ready and it then has the ability to become healthy. Because a lot of it is unhealthy at the moment, and I'll talk to you about that, what that looks like. So some of the things that I'm talking about there is this photo down in your bottom left. You end up with like monocultures. One type of tree in an area dominating. And you can see all the leaf litter on the ground there. Well, that's just smothering out all the grass. So there's no native grasses growing there. So that's what really our job is to get in there and clear those areas out. And some of it might not be fire, some of it might be mechanical to start off with. But trying to get country back to scratch. Before COVID, we had a Work for the Dole program working with us as well. And being able to provide those opportunities for other Cranda people, Cranda Bummer, to get out there and learn these skills. A lot of people got aspirations to be working on country, but again, we're limited by the amount of resources and funding that we have to be able to implement and provide people with opportunities. So some of the work that we do, so obviously I'm speaking about fire today, but we do done a little bit of water quality work, wetland management, some re-veg work with Kathy and the crew from Cranda EnviroCare, and site prep work, biodiversity surveys. We're involved with this little fellow up in It's really rare up in the Davies Creek region, the Northern Beddell. Other threatened species work, and also biosecurity, so with yellow crazy ant. One of the things that that I felt that we needed when I came back and started working on country was to have our own plan. So we were given determination over our native title claim was lodged over Barron Gorge in 1904, and then determination was recognised in 2004. And that was a real groundbreaking moment on a number of fronts. One, it was the first determination over a national park in Queensland. And of course, it was our first determination recognising that we hold rights and interest over country. But since then, not much has happened. You know, we had an Indigenous land use agreement that expired in 2010 that told us what we couldn't do on country. That's what that ILUA we call it. And it's basically an agreement between us and government. But that ILUA told us what we couldn't do. It spoke to saying that you can't do this, you can't do that in country. And I said, oh, well, stuff that, let's turn that around. So we developed our plan. And we want to talk about what we can do on country and what we will do on country. So there's aspects of management that we're involved in with national parks. Our boys and our rangers are out doing patrols, but also fire is a big part of it. And I just want to again acknowledge Robbie with the amount of burning that he's entrusted with us this year, and the amount of protected areas that we've burnt, particularly out in Crandall West State Forest, and also up in Bear Hill, Davies Creek. But the point about this is to show that, you know, we just can't go there and say and demand things, because we've been doing that for a long time and no one listens, you know. So we put it in a form, and hence the development of this plan. We put it in a form that government can understand. It talks government language, and government can respond to that and say, oh yeah, this looks good, yeah, we want to partner with you and work with you on this. We're having those discussions now with government. And again, just acknowledging where this work come from. So Victor, thank you very much, Rob. So what this is about is really applying, and I spoke briefly about it before, applying the right sort of burn in country. I was out, and this is in the middle of August when things were really dry, and it was amazing to watch. We lit up a fire on this area that was full of eucalypts and corymbias, and mainly corymbias, like that Corymbia tessellaris. And I lit up a fire there, and I was watching it, and it was a windy day, and we need that fire to push along in that grassland. And I was watching it move across, and it moved into red stringy country, and it stopped. And it's the same grass that's there, but it's amazing to watch it stop. And I went, oh, look at that, you know. And this fire like actively moving in that line, where that line between those two trees separated out, or true family of trees separated out, there was a clear delineation of it. So country tells you the right time to burn. And that's what Victor talks about, particularly in Fire Country. In his book, he talks about seeing groups of trees as tribes. And they're the trees for that country. That's the people for that country, those trees. And they tell you what the right time to burn. So being able to understand that is a key part of what the difference is between cultural burning and hazard reduction burning. It's understanding and reading country. It's also about understanding where and how we implement fire, and looking at different ways of being able to say fire should be applied here at a certain time. Victor talks about fire should be there all year round. So if you can imagine in some of that country, people walking around and applying fire at different times, walking from different parts of the country, and camping in different areas, and as they moved along, they applied that fire. So all considerations aside, fire tells you the right time, or that country tells you the right time. I've been out on country out here, and we lit up some fires, and it just wouldn't go at all. And we're lighting with matches. We don't use drip torches. I've seen the effects of drip torches in some country where people will walk through with drip torches, and it creates that big wall of fire, and it creates that heat, and the fire will just move through that country and consume things in front of it. And it's not discriminatory then between the different ecosystems and micro-ecosystems that are there. On some of our fires, we'll light up and it'll come and little gullies will pull them up. And I remember Kathy asking me, and we were talking to her about, you know, the riparian zones along the Flaggy River, Flaggy Creek. And I was having a discussion with her, and I said, it's not going to get anywhere near there, just knowing country. And the time that we burnt that country near Flaggy in early May, it just trickled down and stopped on the edges of that rainforest. That country just put itself out and manages itself. And like I say, some of the small gullies, we had to walk back in and light up on the other side of those gullies and just continually burning and walking back in and walking further. Because that's an important part of it. That's what old people did. Old people were out on country and just moving in between those areas. You know, like we like to sit in a flash four-wheel drive and, that's too far from the car to walk in there. But that's an important thing to do, and especially getting out in known country. So some of the issues, the wrong type of fire. So that fire up on the right there was a particularly devastating event last year. And this is country that Victor and Pete had been working with the old men on up in all the Kuka-Taipan country. And it had nice native grasses spread right through there. And one event, it took one event, and you look at it like all them trees are burnt, the canopy are burnt, and it just scorched everything. And I think that was from aerial incendiary fire, and just getting in there at the wrong time. So some of the good work that you can do can be undone, and that's one of the issues is applying fire at the inappropriate time and inappropriate way. Again, that fire, that photo in the middle there, you get monoculture and one type of tree dominating areas. That should be bloodwood country, but it's just dominated with she oak, burning of the canopy. So that, according to them old fellas, that's against the law, punishable, you know, like by death basically, because you go and burn the canopy, and then you know you're destroying a whole range of life for a whole lot of different species. Some of the fire that we light, you know, it trickles through country. It averages probably that height, even in grassland. It won't get up that high. It'll still move quick and you still have to be wary of it. But yeah, you just got to understand that when you light that fire, and it's going to burn in certain areas, you can see and read and understand. And I'm starting to see that now, see and understand where fire, the extent of fire will go, and really read it. And those animals that are living in that country, they're smarter than us. And they know when that smoke goes through there that they're moving. And you walk along with some of the fires trickling through and you'll see the trees full of insects. The insects are moving up into the trees, and trees are alive with crawling insects and lizards and snakes and other, the marsupials are already gone. And like I said, as soon as they smell that smoke, and like I said, the fire will just trickle through and pull up in those gullies, before those gullies. So that's the refuge yet for those animals over that period when this country back up here is recuperating. And it doesn't take long, not long before you start seeing green pickings coming back on that country, and it's ready then for, you know, like the wallabies and the other small marsupials to get out and live amongst that country. But the main thing is that canopy is protected. And what comes back is that native grasses. We want to clear out all those leaf litter, and using fire. Sometimes you have to just get in there and mechanically clear, because it's so bad in some areas, and some areas it's going to take a hot fire to get you to start to a starting point basically. Another key issue, sorry, there with that one, Saskia, is managing of infrastructure. And over the last few years, I've been really impressed with our crew. Learning and understanding and how to use the equipment and understanding the way fire will move to be able to protect infrastructure and interact with it. We've burned on a number of places like this, and with joint burns with national parks and Cranda rural fires. And importantly, it's about looking after that. We saw the devastation that happened in southern Australia, and we don't want to repeat that up here. So cultural burns, yeah, they can move. Some can move slow, some can move fast through some areas. It depending on the trees, it depends on the terrain, and importantly, it depends on the soil. because those trees are there because of that soil. So our fire shouldn't burn the canopy. When fire is done right, those areas that I spoke of, those gullies and that, they become the refuges for those little small animals that want to hide in there. And like I said, it won't take long before those green pickings come back. But burning, I mentioned before, and being out on country, it's also helping revitalise culture. What you see on the left there is a song so we've worked with Michael Quinn, the linguist here, for a number of years, and we're really lucky and I'm grateful to have our language and a lot of aspects of language and culture recorded. And you know, like we've got speakers here in country. But one of the things that we found early last year was a song that talked about burning out on country. So being able to revitalise culture and country and through this practice, you know, because that didn't come along until we were actually out on country and doing the activity. And then Michael said, hey, there's this song. So it's about understanding and reading and knowing country and seeing all the aspects of country. And like I said, there's systems within systems, and understanding and knowing that is important. And a key part of that is providing meaningful job. You know, like I got one young fellow there who works with us. He had trouble stringing through a couple of words, and now he's up doing presentations. When we were on a workshop up near Davies Creek, he got up and did a presentation, and a lot of people said, hey, I've never seen this fellow talk before, and he got up there and did it. So it's those skills and experience that we're providing to these young people as well, but also like that cultural understanding. And a key part of it is our relationships. It doesn't happen without our relationships. So I talked to Rob before, and talked about Rob before and the relationship we have with QPWS, and that's improving. And it's about relationship. A piece of paper only says so much. We can have MOUs, we can have you know, agreements, and we can have legislation, you know, like Cape York. But I've seen, you know, like some of those circumstances on Cape York, they break down because it's not about those pieces of paper, it's about the relationship that you have on the ground. And we've got great relationships with QPWS and also Crandon Rural Fires. Baz Child, who's come down with us quite often, respects and understands and lets us apply our fire management techniques on country. And then when he needs help, you know, with sort of hazard reduction, burns and fire, or response to fire, we go out and give him a hand. So it's about that relationship. So in regards to implementing and using fire on ground, so the top work there, that was a bit of work that we did with Crane Envirocare out of Russet Park, and we went in there and burnt that area and cleared it out and then get it ready for that site rehab and site re-veg work that had to apply. Working with rural fires, getting out there and implementing, and also that HQ plantations, we did a burn with them. But also about using and understanding and working within the equipment and skills that we need to learn to be able to be competent in getting out there and manage it. So it's not just about being competent cultural-wise, but also being competent in terms of the health and safety implications that we need to have as well. So they're all the different components. But I just want to quickly talk to that photo down your bottom right there is about knowing what's going on. And I spoke to you before about the infusion of traditional knowledge and science. And what we want to be able to do is develop this methodology that Pete has been working on for a number of years, and put this methodology into a process that Western science can sit back and go, oh yeah, this is a real rigid science process. It's based on traditional knowledge, but it's a real rigid science process. And that's happening more and more in Australia. We've got big burning going across northern Australia to reduce carbon. And it's a methodology, the Savannah burning methodology is a methodology recognised by the Clean Energy Regulator, but that came out of a traditional knowledge base. And that's important to understand and know where these things come from. So 30 years ago when I started in this game, we were struggling to get recognised as just being rangers on the ground. Now we're working with within these systems and saying, you know, like this knowledge applies, this knowledge is real, and this knowledge has implications, and it can benefit the broader management of country. There's still a struggle. There's still ongoing fights. But I'm going to invite Pete up to talk about what this means in regards to what science and Indigenous knowledge look like. Thank you.